It is absolutely remarkable that the hardest test that Avraham Avinu faced, according to Rabbeinu Yona, one of the great medieval commentators in his commentary to Pirkei Avot, is not Akeidat Yitzchak, not the horrific, I don't know what other word, to sacrifice his son. The final Lech Lecha, the first test was Lech Lecha me'artzecha, test number 1, according to most commentators. We know that Avraham Avinu faced 10 such difficult spiritual trials and tribulations. It seems that's what the Mishnah said. There's an argument which of the 10, because Chazal don't say that clearly. So a lot of the medieval commentators, the Rishonim, have different lists of the tests. But most agree that the most difficult test was the one that we read at the end of last week's parsha, the binding of Isaac. Incredibly, says Rabbeinu Yona, that the 10th and final test, because what could be more difficult than the command to sacrifice his son, is indeed in this week's parsha. In this week's parsha, where Sarah unfortunately dies quite tragically, according to our sages. She died at the very news of the Akeidat Yitzchak. She just heard about the fact that her son was about to be bound, and even though he wasn't bound, the news of that so shocked her that she passed away, which in and of itself is such a painful tragedy. Sarah dies. Avraham now has to find a place to bury his wife, and incredibly he has the test. There's nowhere to bury her. According to the law, you could only have land to bury a family member if you owned land. Avraham didn't own land. This is Avraham Avinu, which Hashem has promised time and time again. I'm going to give you this land, and I'm going to make you into a great people there. And how many times he says to him, go and walk the land. I'm going to give it to you. And he does Brit Bein Abtarim and promises to give it the covenant of the peace. And then Brit Milah, he says, I'm going to give you this land. As far as you can see, it all belongs to you. When push comes to shove and Avraham needs a place to bury, he's grief-stricken over his wife, he's got nowhere to bury her. And incredibly, say some of the Rishonim, I think it's the Rashbam who says, if you look at the Psukim, he says, he asked in the Psukim, he says, Tnuli achuzat kever imachem. He says to the people of Chet, can you give me a plot of land which I'll buy from you? And they say, no. B'mivchar kvarecha kvaret meitecha. We're not going to give you anything. You can choose the best of our graves, and you can bury your wife there. We're not selling you anything. We're giving you no achuzah. You're having absolutely no hold on the land. Avraham Avinu has been promised by God more than anything else that this will be the land given to his children. And at the end of his life, when he comes to bury his wife, he owns absolutely nothing. And look how much he has to grovel. The sages say how many times he has to sit before the people of Chet and before Ephron Achiti and pay exorbitant prices and degrade himself, because Avraham understood, and this is the greatness of Avraham Avinu, that even though from the river to the sea was promised to Avraham, he practically owned nothing yet. And how much patience and emunah and faith he needed in Hashem's divine command that in the end the entire land would belong to him. This was the test. They didn't question. He buried his wife, so grief-stricken, bent over backwards, did whatever he could to buy it and pay exorbitant price, to buy a tiny piece of land under the ground, the cave of Machpelah, to bury his wife, even though the whole land was promised to him. What a message for us today. Look at the trials and tribulations of the Jewish people. All we wanted to do since October 7th is defend ourselves against this horrific attack that those of Hamas, Yamach Shemama, said they're going to do over and over again. And they still have 101 of our hostages. And all we're trying to do is prevent it happening again. Bring tens of thousands of our citizens back to their homes and bring back our hostages and ensure that this doesn't happen again. And yet there are those around the world in campuses and in the halls of power saying, from the river to the sea, no, these people deserve nothing. They have no claim in this land. If ever there was a people with a claim to the land, it's the Jewish people. And yet they're people to say from the river to the sea. And look how if we fight for our very right, which is so blatant and obvious that the Jewish people have to this land. But we have faith, like Avraham Avinu. It will be okay. And we have patience. And it's a process of Geula Kima Kima. And we with conviction and dedication know that if we stick to this path, the path of Avraham Avinu, with conviction and commitment, but with patience, everything will pan out the way it's supposed to be, because ultimately we live in Hashem's world and not ours, and His word and His promises will come to fruition. Shabbat Shalom.